Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka. It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We're an anime podcast where every 2 weeks we come together and discuss an anime we recently watched. Usually it's a newer anime, but right now we're in our special time of the year where we pick rules-free classic anime by our hosts so that we can just talk about the classics, the hits, the ones we missed, whatever it is. And today on the podcast, we're talking about the first 12 episodes of Darker Than Black. And to do that, I need the help of my co-host. So we're going to start off with his retro hot take. He's the fallout to my boy. It's Jeremy.
Every time I watch 90s anime, I realize how much I miss the 90s. There's my hot take. The 90s were better.
Okay, VH1, calm down.
Yeah. I do miss VH1.
Yeah, that would go with that. That makes sense. We also have the Panic at My Disco. It's Jason.
I think there's not enough anime that does episodic versus serialized.
All right. And my name is Troy. My retro hot take is that Speed Racer is the real retro. This 90s stuff, it's still pretty new and cutting edge, right? Fellow young people?
Yeah. That and Astro Boy, I guess.
Yeah, Speed Racer and Astro Boy. That's what the old people watch, not
Speed Racer was never good.
Yes, it was. For its time. And so was
Monkey in the
Voltron.
trunk.
Jim. It's Bridal.
Yeah.
I love Speed Racer.
I just want to say, you have hydraulics that like shoot you off the ground. As soon as they touch the ground, your car is just gonna crumble. Anyway.
Hey, what? No, that's not fair. You can't. What? The physics don't apply to Gundam, but only Speed Racer?
Gundam's in the future.
So Speed Racer. Can you prove me wrong?
Can you?
It was in the future for them. Okay. For them. They shot laser guns. I'm pretty sure.
And they had talking chimps. So
We're recording, right?
correct.
All right. So let's talk about Darker Than Black. We're going to start with our non-spoiler review. This was Jason's rules-free, wink pick. Jason, what'd you think of Darker Than Black?
What are you implying?
Nothing. Not that you tried other picks that would have
said
got us
rules
banned in Texas.
Free. No rules. Anyways. I think I liked it a little more now than I did back then, but I remember really liking this anime when I first watched it. But it's been so long that I've forgotten just about every plot point, so it's kind of almost watching a new anime for me. It's an episodic, but it's neat because it's like every 2 episodes is a story, so it's almost a mix. But really neat world. Like so invested in what's going to happen. The characters are interesting. I like the power sets that they have, and there's this mystery of where the powers came from, and are the people with powers even human? So there's some really cool moving pieces going on while we get this mystery style mission based episodes, and so I'm enjoying it a lot.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I saw it a long time ago. I don't remember if I finished it, but I remember liking it, and it's too far back for me to even like predicted where things were going. I was surprised in the first couple of episodes, the twists and turns the story took. As a matter of fact, that's probably one of the things that I would say in a spoiler free is it's almost a little bit rough around the edges. It's like it's still finding its feet in those first couple episodes, at least. And there were times where I was a little bit confused at what I had seen, trying to figure out, well, what just happened? And It does get better later, but it also I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Like if it's intended that they're adding a layer of mystery in the way that it's presented, or if it's just that this is Studio Bones, so they're pretty great, but maybe they were still finding their feet with this one. I don't know, but I really like it. I would recommend it.
I just want to for full context, to say that I generally did like what I watched.
Here we go.
Here you go. However, I had tried to watch this before, and after like the 3-episode test, I had dropped it. And watching it again, I kind of felt I understood why. But I definitely had a much better sense of it this time. And, having to go through it because it's the assignment of the anime, I really liked the story. Again, I want to say I generally liked it. I walked away with a positive experience. But in a non-spoiler review, I would say this is the equivalent of, Mom, can we go get McDonald's chicken nuggets? And your mom saying, no, we have chicken nuggets at home, with Cowboy Bebop being McDonald's chicken nuggets. And
McDonald's. It's McDonald's.
How in the world are you even comparing Bebop to this?
I know, this is leagues ahead.
No, I mean, like, this is apples to oranges.
No, this is apples to apples. What are you talking about? The man who, first of all, jazz music playing all the time in the background. The episodic nature, just so you know, because I'm playing this card close to the vest, because I was like, man, this is like Diet Cowboy Bebop. I'm so getting Cowboy Bebop vibes. The guy who did the storyboards for Cowboy Bebop, this is his first directing job. So he came from Cowboy Bebop and then made this, wanting to kind of match the style of Cowboy Bebop in his own way. And knowing he's the storyboarder, I was like, oh, that makes sense, because his stories are really good. And I think the characters are his weak spot, whereas Cowboy Bebop has its iconic, Spike and Faye, Jet and
Corgi
Ed
Boy.
and
yeah.
Hines. Yeah, they're iconic. So when I think back to Cowboy Bebop, I'm like, the stories were good, but I remember those characters. I'm going to look back at Darker Than Black and be like, yeah, the story was good. It's aiming to be Cowboy Bebop and falling just short, which still makes it a very good anime.
Yeah, what one's on Earth and the other one's a spacefaring adventure. Yeah, real apples to apples there.
Wait, you think they're different just because the setting is slightly different? I mean, they went to Earth multiple times in Cowboy Bebop.
Okay.
I mean, both are very noir heavy. They sometimes have new main characters for a couple episodes while the main characters are in the background. They also, well, I'm gonna save that card for later.
Okay, here we go.
I would just say it's a really good anime in its own right. If I was had watched both, gonna go back and watch one, I don't see why I wouldn't go to Cowboy Bebop over this.
So is there room for
anime?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like when you go to see a sequel and the sequel's pretty good, but it's not as good as the first one. But it still was a good movie. Yeah. That's where I get.
I never thought, wow, this is so much like Cowboy Bebop while I was watching it.
But it is.
I didn't either, except when you said that. And mentioned the jazz, there was actually a moment where Tanya said, wow, this anime really likes jazz, and she's not watching it, she's just over there watching something else, right? And so you're right, there's some very strong tone similarities.
So any anime that has jazz in it is instantly a Cowboy Bebop ripoff? Like, what are we talking about?
I would say that there's some similarities in tone and pacing.
A crew of people going on missions, and they're all kind of disassociated.
Yeah.
So Space Dandy is basically Cowboy Bebop.
Yes, we already went over that. It was made by the same guy.
No.
Okay.
I like Space Dandy.
And Samurai Champloo, also made by the same guy. Again, all very similar. I would just say
settings.
The guy going for Cowboy Bebop was trying to swing for the fences, going for something new. The guy making this was trying to make his own Cowboy Bebop. Their goals were just a little different, and I just think
Cowboy story was different, characters were different, setting was different, but basically the same.
I can't with you.
I just so disagree.
He literally worked on Cowboy Bebop. He literally said, I want to do my own version of Cowboy Bebop when he made this. He also,
and I used to deliver Windows. Doesn't mean I deliver Windows while I'm working at my job.
But you can compare those two jobs. It doesn't matter. Also, this guy made Wolf's Rain, which I remember watching on Adult Swim a while ago. Oh. Really great story on its own. Also had an issue with its characters. The only one I liked was the one with the wolf with the collar.
I couldn't bring myself to watch it. Just the idea of an anime about wolves seemed boring.
They're humans.
So basically Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
Are we really gonna sit here and be like, Steven Spielberg sucks at making movies, in my opinion? I don't know what the rest of you are talking about. Elvis Presley, not good at music.
No.
No, that's not my point. Anyways, let's move on.
Now go on and bash one of the most celebrated anime of all time and try to gaslight me.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong. I like
Cowboy Bebop. That's my thing.
It was great. I don't see the similarities. Like, sure, there's jazz music in both, but
well, the style is exactly the same.
Well, you do agree that like the music sets a certain tone, right? Like the jazz music does matter in that way, right?
Sure.
Anyway.
Okay.
It's like pulling teeth.
Can we talk about the opening and closing, please?
Man,
I had a favorite part of the opening.
Oh, nice. The opening, man, it just like.
Did you say it piqued your interest?
It did.
Like it oozed 2001 anime.
Ooh.
Like it was just the way it was framed, the music,
silhouettes, close-ups of the characters.
Yeah, basically Cowboy Bebop opening too.
Rock music, a guitar wailing away.
Right. Yeah. No, I like the visuals. I like the music. And yeah, it just had that whole early 2000 aesthetic to it. I really liked it.
Yeah, when I first listened to it, I did not like the music. I guess I've really been I've seen so many of the more modern anime just because of the podcast that I've grown accustomed to that approach. And yeah, they're all different, but the music was very distinctly of its time.
Of its time.
Yeah. And so it took me a while, but I do at the very end of it, I love the way that it ends each time with the knife next to the mask. The words that he says at that moment, I actually, probably because I was fast forwarding every time, so I heard that part, so that grew on me. But I like that part.
I like the opening words too. I've lost my soul to it. Now I can kill it.
Yeah.
I will find it within the gate.
I kept getting like vibes of Ghost in the Shell for some reason when watching the opening.
I got Lane. Serial Experiment Lane.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'll just say I love the guitar in that opening. That guy was rocking it. Ending not as good as Cowboy Bebop's. All right, last time I said.
Oh no. Well, no, it was fine. It served its purpose. It not a lot going on in it. Music was okay. It wasn't, because this is a fairly adult-ish topics and like, the depression. No. There wasn't that jarring, something terrible happens and it cuts to as the credits roll by. Yeah.
No, this the music actually fit a little bit more. But you do make a really interesting point there that there was something different about the way that they did end credit sequences and outros back in the 90s and 2000s, I think. And maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just gonna say it because I really think I'm seeing the parallel when I look back and try to remember the ones that I've seen. They didn't really try to do anything with the outros. Not very often. It literally was just, hey, here's the credit scroll and some nice music and some pictures to look at.
Someone look somberness.
Yeah, because really we're just keeping you occupied, and so you can have a pleasant experience while you look through the credit scroll. Whereas, I mean, I'm thinking of like Trigun. It had a pretty good one, but even then, it wasn't really playing with the outro the way that nowadays. Yeah. The outro has almost become part of the anime itself, like part of the show. Sometimes you can't miss it because there's special details in it that are going to make the entire anime even better. So that's interesting. I still miss the 90s. Simpler time.
They're not coming back. Let it go.
No.
All right. So
before yet.
Before we officially go to our spoiler section, our next anime is a
Cowboy
movie again.
Yeah.
Who saw that coming? Not us. We are going to watch another film. We're going to watch Paprika. Normally, I'm the guy who picks films. Yeah, a live action film that doesn't even have an anime adaptation. If you were like, hey, let's watch this, it got turned into an anime later.
Comes from Japanese culture.
Those are like apples and oranges.
I'm trying to make this fit here, okay?
I know you are, and I want to help you make it fit, but I can't. Movie Paprika.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it.
What?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Ah,
sorry.
When did it come out?
But you haven't, right, Jason?
I don't remember it very well. I've only seen it once. I don't remember it very well. I remember liking Perfect Blue slightly more, but it'll be interesting to revisit it and see if I can remember why.
2006, and I was not the biggest fan of Perfect Blue. It was okay, but so this will be interesting.
And that one's probably not appropriate for our podcast based on topics it covers. So
yeah,
Paprika's
Blue's
better.
Pretty harsh.
Paprika, think Inception, but anime.
Mm-hmm. I think it actually was an inspiration for.
I think so. I think you're right.
Yeah, for Inception and things like it. Yep.
All right, we're going to the spoiler section now for the first 12 episodes of Darker Than Black. No one knows. Well, I guess if people have seen past it, they might know some stuff by that. But we won't spoil anything past episode 12 because we're not supposed to know anything past episode 12. So that is Now, these guys have mentioned they might finish it, so we might do a mini-sode.
I would be up for that.
To wrap it up.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
And I'll get to take the night off. It'll be great.
You got to make it. You got to do it.
What if I go watch the rest of Cowboy Bebop and then just answer the questions like I had watched your guys' anime?
You can tell us how much better it is every episode.
No, the reason we need you there is so that you can ask us, how'd that make you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right. How would we get through without that? All right. Spoiler warning for Darker Than Black has been dropped. We are set in what seems like modern day. We're in Tokyo. In this world, a strange event happened in South America, and then another strange event happened in Tokyo where a weird space-time anomaly thing showed up. We don't really get to know much about it other than when you're in it, things get funky. And it's been walled off. And then at the same time, a bunch of people got superpowers with a cost. Like if you used your power, you had to do something. They're called contractors because they literally have to do some weird compulsion Like one of the first ones we see is a guy has to lay down rocks in a row, just little stone pebbles, and he has to lay them up whenever he uses power.
Or break his finger, like the other guy.
At the same time, the stars and the moon disappeared, and now the stars in the sky are directly linked to these individuals with superpowers. They also are known for being emotionless and completely rational, logical human beings. Like they're said not have any feelings.
Sociopathic.
Mm-hmm. And they don't seem to be aligned to a greater goal beyond self-preservation, is what it seems like.
So they basically all become mercenaries in mass because they'll do any mission perfectly without any morals or judgment. And the only thing you have to worry about is maybe they'll put their own self-preservation over something that you wanted done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the world. Any thoughts on the world?
Yeah. So what we get from the anime is it seems everyone that was inside what they call Hell's Gate ended up becoming one of three. It's either a contractor, a doll, or a basically someone that doesn't have to pay the cost, but they lose their sanity.
Moratorium.
Moratorium. That's it. But finding out more about like what it is, what the governments know, what they're not telling the populace, all that stuff is super cool. We don't get a ton of answers, which is why I'm like, oh, I gotta watch the next part of the season. It gives you just enough breadcrumbs, and what I'm hoping, because it's been so long since I've seen it, I don't quite remember. I'm really hoping it's not a Lost scenario where we get to the end and it's just like, oh, they were in purgatory the whole time. Spoilers.
Right.
They weren't. That wasn't the ending of Lost.
Island. It was the island god battle thing.
Yeah. They ended up in purgatory in the final season. That had nothing to do with the island. It was just actually random. They ended up in purgatory.
Anyways.
Duh.
You know, law has been since I watched it. Anyways.
I know, but it's my major pet peeve is everyone's like, oh, so it was purgatory. No.
No, I said they ended up in.
Death battle.
Everyone thought the island was purgatory at the end, and it was like, no, that wasn't it.
No,
sorry, it's a pet peeve. That was season 6.
It was awesome. Not Lost, but the world. It was awesome. World building here is great.
It wasn't as good as Cowboy Bebop, though.
That's true.
Okay,
wait.
We had watch parties. Okay, 4 seasons. We had watch parties. Us and of another family. We would watch it live every week. And when we got to the end, it was like, are you kidding?
That's crazy.
Yeah, I think people are way too harsh.
What's in the book?
Lost. Like Game of Thrones deserves all the crap that got thrown its way. It burned all its goodwill. Lost, it spun its wheels a little bit, maybe an extra season too long, but otherwise, it delivered. It answered everything, and everyone just didn't like the answer.
Well, I mean, an unsatisfying answer is not like you deserve the frustration from the audience.
It's like saying FNAF is a Dream Theory.
Dream Theory?
But it wasn't a dream.
That's a deep cut.
Literally a mystical, magical island. Like, what did you think it was gonna be? There was a mystical, magical monster.
But that could have been like hard sci-fi, is what they wanted you to believe for a while.
Yeah, I guess expectations were the real friends along the way. I just think Lost got its worst rap. I bet if people went back and rewatched it, knowing the ending, that it would hit a lot better. I would bet. Whereas Game of Thrones, I think, hits a lot worse. The ending ruins the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones. I think Lost would get better on a rewatch. I'm ready to move on.
Confer with Ryan Johnson? Like, what do you mean expectations?
You're literally grasping at straws now. This card I'm holding for you So excited to play my trap card. All right, Mike, go on.
No, that was all my thoughts on it.
I don't remember what we're talking about.
World building. What do you think, Jeremy?
World building good. It had some of the coolest ideas that I've seen in a long time. Like just the fact that they've got this fake wall. Well, I mean, it's a real wall, but like fake city painted on this giant wall to make it look like you're looking into the horizon of your own city. When in reality, no one knows what's beyond this wall.
Is it a mirror or a fake wall? I couldn't tell.
It looked painted to me.
It's painted kind of like when you see a water tower and they paint trees on it. It's the same concept.
Yeah. And I love that idea because what you have is sort of the human extension of what's happening from whatever it was that caused the sky to change, right? Like the sky got repainted. So then they're like, let's put a wall up and repaint that too. Like we'll just live in our own little dome. And the way that I also loved the way that it brought in different organizations, right? So you've got Pandora, and then apparently the CIA is just causing horrible problems everywhere. It's like sending agents in, and then the Pandora agents and UK, and I think was that UN? Was the UK part of the UN, and the CIA was like sabotaging them during the MI6?
Yeah. I don't know about the UN, but the CIA was messing with MI.
The UK is like, look, we're gonna play nice, and the USA is like, murder! Send in attack choppers.
Well, but then
actually,
MI6 was like, kill them all.
Yeah.
My favorite part about this whole dynamic was, normally, especially from a US standpoint, all of our movies, they happen here, right? And so it almost felt like they were poking fun at like, hey, the U.S. is like, hey, we didn't get a Hell's Gate. We got to get involved.
Yeah. We're going to send our guys in and steal the like meteorite fragments and stuff. So I liked the way it presented that entire how did the different nations get involved? And it was a fresh take on it to me, at least. You don't often see it that way where the CIA is just meddling and annoying. It's pretty good.
I also big fan of the world building, and I do think what they're doing with this is super original, super unique. I think to their detriment, they play their cards a little close to the vest. I've said that a couple times. Sorry. But I those first couple episodes, it's okay. That's a contractor. Okay. The stars. What is Hell's Gate? Is it a gate to hell? No, it's just a place. And they're like, a thing happened. What thing happened? A thing. And so if you're looking for something really early to bite onto, you really have to be patient and just wait. As the little bit of factoids come out, once they do, though, it feels really good, especially by the time you're hitting episode 12. You kind of get a grasp on what Hell's Gate is. That was awesome. So I would say it's really good. Maybe even better than Cowboy Bebop, which was just, hey, we're in space and there's outlaws.
Mm-hmm.
It almost gave me SCP vibes.
Yeah, I could see that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked the way that it actually meted out little by little details about like, hey, what's a doll? We're just going to talk about it like we know what it is, and you'll pick up on it as you watch. I like that type of storytelling instead of having somebody sit there and tell you everything about it, every little detail.
I do like that too. I don't think it works great here because of the thing I'm going to complain about in a minute. I need something to bite onto, and I'm usually fine with, okay, I don't understand the world, but it's going to come as long as I have this other thing to bite onto, and I don't think that thing is here. Again, as someone who had to go through all 12 episodes, I'm glad I did. It's definitely there. It was great. Anyway.
You know what I think also a little bit of influence as far as like how the story was told? Because like I'm thinking back, like when this was released, who else is in a big like long trench coat, black trench coat?
Matrix.
Yeah. I have I have a feeling that this has some inspiration.
Which one from which one?
That this has inspiration from
The Matrix first?
Matrix. Pretty sure.
Okay.
Jeremy will tell if I'm right. Tell me if I'm right.
We
I will.
just added this.
Matrix is in 1999. Darker Than Black was in 2007.
Ah.
Good amount of time.
All right, so we start our story with a man. He's fleeing from the cops across rooftops. They finally corner him, and we see him activate a superpower, and he sends 2 cops flying out into the air. I wrote down telekinesis. It's not. It's gravity control, but
1 cop.
you know, 1 cop. Did you watch it today?
Yesterday.
Well, I watched it 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
I watched it a week ago.
But then he's confronted by a masked man while the cops are trying to find him. We need to talk about the masked man, and then we need to talk about the chief of the police. But first, let's start with our main character. We'll know him as Lee. I think he's known as Hay, which is the word for black. But
Is it?
I think so. We'll call him Lee. I'm going to be calling him Lee. That's what I wrote down in all my notes. So,
okay.
Thoughts on Lee, Jason?
Yeah, I really like Spike. Lee. Sorry, I just can't help myself.
I don't see they're the same. It's apples and oranges.
Right? That's what I'm saying.
And bananas.
I actually really like this character. He is a bit bland as far as, because the story's told very much from his point of view. However, I like his. We don't get a lot of stories where you get to watch. I think the last time we saw somebody like switch between personalities really well, I think probably Spy Family, watching Lloyd play different parts. And it was cool to watch him be like, oh, I'm the dumb, naive kid, or I'm the college student that, I'm just doing a job, or, let me chauffeur you around, to then sociopathic, you're a monster, I'm going to murder you. I also liked his fighting style, being able to kind of integrate his power with how he fought. And I really liked the moment with the mask and the blood. Like that was a cool twist. That you didn't. I think you knew that he was going to do something, but because obviously he's the main character. If he falls off a building, he's not dead. but I thought it was very well written. So yeah, I like this character.
Yeah. There's something about, like, you bring up Spy Family, and the dad has an interesting personality when he's not acting. And I think that's the one complaint I have about Lee, is that he's sort of generic.
He's
emo.
all business.
Yeah. And he's got that emo flair that was common in the 90s, which, love it or hate it, it's consistent. And so whenever he would run into situations where he was acting and he'd like bump into somebody, I actually really liked this, because whenever he'd be clumsy, I would see that and I would think, wow, he actually meant to do that. He's faking it really well. He just seemed absolutely pathetic. Almost gives Superman vibes, right? Like, is this how you see regular people?
Voted, yeah.
Yeah. But he's an interesting character. I was juggling ideas in my head about whether he might be a doll or what might be going on. Just the way that they drew his eyes is very different from everybody else's eyes. But then when you see him in the flashback, he has the same eyes. So maybe he's not a doll. But also the fact that he doesn't have to pay a price, or at least that we know of. He's not really talking about it. So maybe his price is something that he's already paid or something. I don't know.
Are you talking about when they showed him as a kid talking to his sister?
No, I'm talking about when shoot. It was a flashback, but he'd grown up.
When his sister, right before his sister died.
Yeah, because she was an adult at the time. Well,
okay,
an anime adult.
that I believe they're in South America, the gate.
Right, at
when
the
that
gate.
happens. Yeah.
Because I would have thought that maybe that was when he could have been like turned into a doll or something. Because up to that point, I was guessing that he did have to pay a price of some kind. Because Havoc seemed surprised that he didn't have to now.
I think, Troy, you make a really good point about the not getting something to chew on. I think while we're building the world... I haven't made that
point yet on this podcast.
What are you talking about? You said that earlier.
Oh, okay. In the...
Yeah, just a couple... All right. Just a minute ago. Jesus. Okay. I think if there was more information about the syndicate, because I think that is one of my biggest complaints, is that he works for this syndicate, and a syndicate that was very popular in the early 2000s.
It was.
But like, we don't know anything about their goals or motivations or why he's even getting these missions to begin with. And so I think there needed to be more reason behind the missions that he goes on, I think. But
honestly, he's my biggest complaint about a series, and the reason I'm sure I stopped watching the first time. As let's say his Clark Kent version, he's a very bland anime protagonist. Like if he was a slice of life character, he'd kind of be that blank fill, put yourself here character, which is fine. And then when he's in his Dark Avenger hero form, I mean, he's completely blank. And the anime tells us
he's got a mask on.
He's got a mask on. The anime tells us that he is emotional for a contractor. They don't do a great job showing that he's emotional for a contractor. They're like, oh, he's so emotional. I'm like, he's just staring blankly at stuff. What?
Well, I mean, they do have him like he kills somebody out of emotion instead of listening to an order. Like, I think that they show it in extreme moments, but they certainly don't show it when he's just everyday activities as Dark Avenger.
and that would be fine. There's been main characters like this and they work, but I think for me, you have to put a very interesting secondary character with them to help. Okay, this is an old one, but like Gundam Wing, at least you had the other Gundam pilots where Hero, he was very bland, I'm just doing business and I don't have emotions. And then you had like, okay, let's now go over to this Gundam pilot and he's very emotional and over the top. And so you had other stuff. His surrounding crew, we just get like little flashes of, and we'll talk about them in a minute, but they don't help support the show. So, like, if Spike was being mysterious, we still had Jet and Faye. I don't want to just compare it, but I think that's the biggest missing link in this anime. I think it could be one of the greats if they had given him a little bit more charm or just something more to bite your teeth into and latch onto this character. Now, with that said, other characters are going to come up in other stories that I think are amazing. I kept thinking, man, if this was the primary protagonist, I would be so down. November Guy, I thought they would make great main characters of anime. So there's no problem in designing a character. It's just the way they went with this guy. I find it hard to be interested in him, despite how interesting everything around him is.
Yeah, main character of Kids never had that problem. It's just a blank blade, can't grab onto anything. It was terrible.
But then there were a dozen other characters around him at all
that were
times.
Just as bad.
I can't throw stuff in my arm shirt. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, that was the since the lore is being drip dropped at you, I need that character to bite into. That's what I was hinting at.
That's fair.
There was one scene in particular that I'm thinking of that it kind of is to your point, and that is where he's in Pandora undercover, and there's another character there who's also undercover, and she keeps saying, "Oh, you're angry. Did I make you angry again?" And then the camera goes to him, and he still looks the same. I'm like, wait, what? He's mad?
There's also a scene where he's literally conducting physical torture on an unarmed woman, and I'm like, you have not earned this for this character yet. How do you expect the audience to be like, okay, I trust you, Lee, that you're making a good call here? I'm like, oh boy, straight to torture, and he's uttered like 5 lines in his true persona at this point. That is a choice.
Even in episode 1, his very first introduction, the first thing he does is kill a guy who's like, hey, I'll do what you want, just pay me a little more, and I'll go do the thing. And his boss is like yelling in his ear, don't kill him, we can use him, don't kill him. He's like, ah.
On his ear. Yeah. He's just off screen camera.
Yeah.
Since we're correcting each other.
Fair.
All right. But yeah, that happens. And then we are giving kind of a backstory. Okay, we also have the cops running around. So I want to talk about Chief Misaki and the other cops. If anyone you want to add in. Really, there's only the big guy that kind of gets more screen time. Saito, voiced by I forget his name. The guy who does Piccolo and Vegeta in English. So
really?
His voice comes through and it's like, there's that guy.
Nice. It's like, there he is.
Your guys' thoughts on Misaki and the cops.
I did like her. However, there was a little bit of inconsistency. So they made very explicit that the populace doesn't really know what contractors are.
Men in Black style. Something happens, you get your memory erased.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but everyone we run into seems to know what a contractor is, even non-contractors, right? And then they don't seem to be very careful about their crime scenes either, and they're always their investigative skills are terrible because they're always like 15 steps behind. It's not like they're like right on their tail or they're figuring out the mystery. No, they're way back there and just kind of like discovering what's happening to them, even though they have like tools to see who's alive and who's not from the stars, and they've got it all mapped out and they're constantly watching it. I just felt like the police force itself was a bit inept for what they had established. Besides that, Misaki's performance is great. I actually really liked this character as well, especially her episodes where she gets to go to the birthday party. But she's very believable as a tough boss that wants to do the right thing. And yeah, they did a good job with her, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hope that they have a really good reason for why the police force is so far behind the contractors. They've got those really interesting mediums that are like using power lines or anywhere there's electricity in order to observe things with their spirits. That's super cool, and it seems like an amazing advantage. But there are only 4 of them, so I guess they can't be everywhere at once. But then I also can't really tell how fast those spirit things move. And the one that we have working with Lee is she uses water to do the same thing. And she seems to always be where she needs to be to observe things. And there's that kid that's with MI6 as well. I think April was his name. And
I thought he was July.
He could have been July.
Girl.
It could have been.
I assumed April was a girl name, so I was just like, oh, okay, that must be April.
Yeah. And so I don't know why the police would be so bad at their job, but I think you're spot on there. There's got to be a reason. I hope they expound on it in Core 2.
In universe, I'm not sure there's a reason. I feel like at this point it's so that they yell out lore that will help put puzzle pieces into place. It just seems like they get very dramatic, like, oh, the star is activating. They're using their power because whenever you use your power, the star you're attached to also activates. Mm-hmm. But what if your power is just like, hey, I'm heating up a cup of coffee with my hands?
Depends on your contract. If it's not a bad contract, it'd be worth it.
How do they know it's something worth freaking out about? Like, oh, that star's twinkling. And is that dramatic? Do stars not twinkle? Like, we see powers used over and over again. Do they do that every time? Twinkling star. Oh no, another one.
I have a feeling and this is me pontificating. I could be way off, but it seems that the reason they freak out is because Twinkle happens and now they have a crime scene.
Yeah,
that seems to probably be more likely than not to happen, and that's why they freak out because they're like, oh great, more dead bodies.
Maybe. Based on what we are told about contractors, I can agree with that. I guess contractors aren't just using their powers willy-nilly to heat up coffee and soup.
That would be a great contract. When you use your contract, like you're compelled to drink coffee, so you heat it up. Now you're compelled to drink it. So.
That's not bad.
Yeah. For the character, I thought she was pretty good, but not really until her episode. I guess my biggest takeaway is I wish there was more of her and the police force, especially in these opening scenes, while we're getting used to Lee. Kind of make these guys the primary I would have made them the primary protagonists of the first cour, and then switch to Lee in the second cour once we've gotten to know him better. Because I'm obviously a master anime storyteller. I thought she was interesting enough to carry the role. I agree with what you said about her, Jason. So I just wish we had more of her. All right. We keep going in the story. The cops are talking about a lost researcher that was associated with the man that was killed last night by Lee. And then the cops go and investigate what do you call a gentleman's club?
Yeah, because I don't think the girls were there to actually do anything except give you the date.
Yeah, it's not a brothel. They're just being friendly to you in very scantily clad dresses.
Mm-hmm.
To see if any of them might be the researcher seems random, but guess what? They're right on the money. The lady at their table ended up being the researcher, and she runs away, and they chase after her, and she comes across Lee. Now, we have seen Lee go into his I'm just a college kid looking for work persona, renting an apartment from a kooky old lady. Very funny scene of like, I'm just trying to talk to you, and she's like, fix my TV.
Very nice.
But she comes across him looking at the stars with a telescope. Now, later he gets a telescope to look at the stars. Is that happened before this? Is this not in chronological order? Or does he just get two telescopes?
No, it is in he gets the second one because he specifically says during his time in Pandora that, I have a telescope at home. It's not like this one, though.
Okay.
It's not as high quality. One thing that was really interesting is that the room that he got was actually number 201.
Yeah.
And his star is PK201.
PK201, yeah. I do have that written down.
I love that even though they were right on the money and they were like in the perfect spot at the perfect time to like try and get this lady, they still get in trouble for being a gentleman.
Yeah. I don't want to know what you were doing here. Cracking the case wide open, Chief. Come on.
Well, what's also weird is if they were here for detective work, then they were going to write it off anyways because they purchased drinks. They would wind up writing those off. So she would know anyways. So that means that the fact that they're embarrassed, they weren't there for detective work. And they found her anyways.
Hey, that's called intuition.
Yeah.
So she comes across Lee in the park looking at the fake stars, and he helps hide her by pretending they're making out in the park, and the cops run by.
And then doing the typical Japanese guy
I'm
thing, the kid thing. Yeah. Pretend kissing you.
They realize that they are neighbors. And then when they're on their way back, a man named John shows up who was a friend of the other guy who was her friend. Basically, she thinks these people are helping her, and they're contractors who are actually trying to use her. We don't know why yet. Gene, yes. I didn't write his name. He was already dead at this point. You want? All right. So
it's amazing. The small things in life that I love so much.
John attacks them and throws Lee over a bridge into a train, and then abducts Lady. To be honest, I wrote her name is Misaki, and then realized at the end of this episode, oh no, that was the cop. I forgot to write her name. Anyway, yeah, abducts her, and then she wakes up and gets away, and Lee finds her. He's not dead. This keeps happening. They eventually go to her house. It's ransacked, so they go to his apartment. Cops show up. They decide to run away together. Again, this is all Lee working an angle for his mission. Takes her to a diner, gets a bunch of food. She starts acting funny and goes to the bathroom. And then an older, short, squat, looks like he drives a taxi for a living kind of gentleman is like, hey, why are you taking so long on this? You just need to kill the girl and get the thing we need. Let's go. This is Wong, and he's part of he's Lee's boss and handler, yeah. And they also have Mao the cat and Yin the doll. And dolls are similar to contractors, except for they have observation powers and are more support role.
Yeah, so dolls tend to just have no personality, and they don't have a contract, so they don't feel that they're compelled to do anything when they use their powers, except because their personality's gone. That's probably what the trade-off is. But yeah, it seems that not, as we'll find out later, dolls are not only for observation, they can be used for other things. However, there seems to be a plethora of dolls that's what they do, their recon.
And it seems like they must be able to create the dolls and choose their likeness, because this one happens to, the one that we discover later happens to look just like another character. And that can't be coincidence. They just got lucky and found a doll that looked like this other character.
So I want to talk about these three supporting casts, the rest of the team. Your guys' thoughts on Wong, Mao, and
I really like Mao.
Mao.
Right. No Ein, but a decent character.
I think he's a great character.
Yeah. No, Talking Cat apparently used to be human, but could jump into animals, and unfortunately, while jumped into an animal, lost his original body. So now he's just an animal. And apparently he has to fight against the wild side of a feline brain. So, and also it was a really cool touch. Later on, he transfers into another animal, and he can't perform very well as that animal because he hasn't spent much time in it, and it was like a skill issue. And I thought that was a really cool touch. Like, he's just not instantly, it could be any animal. And so, but that gives a reason why. That's why he stayed. Well, also the other great thing about being a cat, he's like, yeah, I can sleep in the park all day and nobody bats an eye. Like,
yeah.
And people bring me kibble. Gross. Our doll character, she has no personality, so I don't really have any thoughts on her. I think she gets more of a expansion in the next cour, if my fuzzy memory recalls. And Wong, I'm not too tight on him. He's obviously not a contractor, at least it seems that he's not. He's just a handler, barking orders. He seems to be the story driver, but besides that, he doesn't have too much of a role. So,
I got real strong vibes of Megalobox manager. Just that sense of, I'm here because this is going to be good for me, but eventually the people that I'm taking care of actually grow on me a bit. He seems like he's going to get softer. But yeah, initially he's even making comments about like, wow, I see why you're so good at this. you don't even feel guilt, do you? Like, you feel nothing for what you're doing to this poor lady, leading her on, pretending. And Lee doesn't even bat an eye. He's just scarfing his food down like nobody's talking to him. Yeah, the characters are pretty great. I don't really have much to add. They're interesting.
I thought Mao was great when he finally started talking and being a character rather than being like, oh, did the cat talk? Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Once they're like, yeah, no, it's a guy and a cat, let's just go with it. I thought he was great. The others two, I feel like there's a lot of potential there. I don't feel like they do hardly anything with them in this core. Especially Wong. Yeah, like you said, I think there's a lot of potential for a change in the character. He's very prejudiced, but seems like at any moment he could end up having a heart of gold kind of thing going on. So I think there's a lot of potential.
Contractor-esque?
Oh man, okay. Yeah, I think they'll get better. I think they're underutilized. I think it's bizarre that they're the main cast and we just don't ever get to see them. It's what it is.
Actually, you make a good point, because like the first literally 6 episodes, every time we hear Mao's voice, he's off camera. We don't even see him.
Yeah. She's the disembodied voice.
I'm like, oh, a cat. Oh, a cat distracted them. Why would the cat do that? Okay. The cat's talking. I get it. I figured it out. Please feel free to move on. But again, the cat was one of the better parts of the anime, so who am I to complain? They end up running from the bad guy contractor, John, and his thugs again. And the girl passes out, and Lee just leaves her. He just takes what he needs, which is her research notes, I guess, and goes. She wakes back up. This was a
weird scene. I'm wondering if he shocked her, because as he's passing in front of a police station, there's a couple cops standing outside, seeming they're just having a conversation,
like trying to leave her in a good position.
Right, and he says something to the effect of, I hope you find what you're looking for, or something like that, and then she passes out. I have a feeling he gave her a bit of a shock while they were holding hands, so that she would pass out.
In the subtitle, he says "forget."
That's right. He did say that even in the dub. I think it was interesting because, he's been playing this long con on her to get these research papers and like gain her trust. And you don't see that a lot in anime. I actually liked this storyline, and like Lee doing the whole back and forth of I'm a sociopath eating my food to I'm college kid that wants to run away with you. Hey, we need money. So, I actually was really enjoying this.
Yeah, I was really curious because I was trying to figure out what his powers were, and they hadn't really shown us yet. We didn't know that he could shock, and we just knew that he put his hand on some guy's face, and then the guy's eyes were bulged out when they found him later. I'm like, I don't know. I've seen a lot of anime. There's a bunch of things that could do that. No idea. And so when he said that, said forget, and then she just froze and everything, I thought, oh, does he have some kind of like mind wipe, clear your brain thing? And maybe, well, no. I was thinking maybe his control of electricity was fine enough to be able to mess with neurons, but no, because she didn't forget anything. She literally just collapsed. Nothing else changed. So that's kind of weird. Maybe he was just saying forget as in go to the memory erasure after this and get it wiped, because he did say you'd do better. You'd have been happier if you'd had your brain wiped from your childhood memories. But it did not appear that he knew she was not the original girl at this point. So, but maybe he did. Maybe he could tell. I'm still not sure on that one.
I do want to call it that I love his power set, and I love the way he uses the knives on wires to make his powers ranged, since he's has to touch people. So
static shock.
Yeah. But it's also very, a knife flinging around on a wire. It's just cool looking.
Dark Pika.
Darker than Pika.
He's confronted. He's confronted by these gangsters, bad guys, and they get ready to fight. And then the lady shows up because she had woken up, grabbed a cop's gun, and then fled and found them. And she shoots him in the back, and they reveal that she's not actually the scientist lady anymore. That woman is already dead and has been replaced with a doll they were using to flush out Lee so they could figure out who had killed their partner. Because when he opens the research, it's all blank anyway. So he fell into their trap card. It's coming, Jason.
Great.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, this was not great logically, because like she grabbed one of the cops' guns. The other two in any other situation would have just downed her right there.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like you don't grab a policeman's weapon. Like, so for her to like get away, that just didn't make sense to me.
I mean, this is in Japan. Anyway, moving on.
It's fake Tokyo.
Someone, definitely not a cat, tells everyone, hey, he's actually wearing a bulletproof vest. He jumps back up and he beats the bad guys. John runs away, and then we see Lee go after him, and then John is found dead in the river. Just dead. I wanted to ask you something. You keep calling him a sociopath, but again, the anime tells us he's emotional and not a sociopath. That he's different.
But he, like, that's not how he's portrayed. Like, all of his somber moments.
He's being very steeled.
Yeah. And he doesn't seem to care about other people's feelings or emotions. Like, he might be emotional, like, because he obviously gets angry in some points, but like, he doesn't seem to care for other people's emotions.
But I think right here we see that he does, because they were like, hey, just kill the doll, and he's like, no, the doll matters. She does die, because she actually dies saving him after this. And also the fact that he didn't just murder her, he just knocked her out in front of a police department to try to leave her in the hands. Like, I think it's the only thing that the anime does to hint that he's not like other contractors, that he's making choices that they wouldn't make. He's doing.
That's fair.
Like, they're pointing out, like, hey, why haven't you just killed her? Contractors would just kill her and go on. And he's like rope-a-doping her into the police department's hands.
Mm-hmm.
Is this where he looks at the research papers, or was it before the bad guys caught up to him?
It was right at the same time. Like, it's blank, and they were there.
That's right. Yeah. So he's looking at the research papers, and there's like just nothing on it. It's just a stack of printer paper.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes. What confused me here was that it flipped to a scene of her in the water, drown, and it was saying her body was found, and this was all happening like at the same time, and they didn't really. I think that even happened before we found out she was a doll or something. Like, the order of giving us this information made it a bit confusing.
Definitely agree. The cops knock on Lee's door to ask if he knew his neighbor. He says no. Chief Masaki's like, I suspect something. Never mind, I'm moving on.
Yeah, why didn't the police officers that saw him walk by with her ID him? It's so weird.
The worst police force in the world.
They really are.
They are not Men in Black. All right, the next story arc is we start with a man who's in Hell's Gate. This is kind of our first time seeing inside of it, because again, we were just told a thing happened. It's basically ruins. Think Chernobyl, but physics have gone wacky. Is my takeaway. He's running through it, and then he starts to throw up, so he takes off his mask, and then he sees a plant. He's like, oh, plant, and like spores are coming off of it. Then we go to modern day. Lee is going to a new job, and he's asked to deliver something to a scientist, and it ends up being the same guy years later. And we see he's got a bunch of research on botany and plants, and he even has that plant from Hell's Gate in his home. And then the scientist is like, hey, can you help me pick up my daughter since you're here? And they go to get the daughter, who's in trouble because she started a fire, but she's like, I didn't start the fire. It's always burning. The world's been turning. Waited a week for that one.
Oh, God.
Tire trap card.
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay.
You'll know when it's coming. The scientist is all upset about this and asking her a bunch of questions. And we also find out that he had worked for this company. He's like, I'm never going back. So they've hired a contractor to force him back into the company, or at least get his research. Lee ends up spending the afternoon with the young girl, keeping her out of trouble. And then they are attacked. Oh, she also has a light in her arm. And then they're attacked, and she ends up setting someone on fire. She's a little fire starter. A little fire starter. I'll stop. Okay.
All the 90s hits.
Then I'm kind of waiting for some comments on the episode. It's fine.
Well, I mean, we're still in the beginning of the episode. Like, what do you want?
That was the end of the first half of the story. The end of the first episode of this arc.
Okay, so this is when they went to the carnival
the
and
whole
everything.
episode?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know. This particular episode was a little slow.
Yeah.
Because it was like we're basically just trying to get to the punchline, right? But then all of a sudden she just like burns an entire
Construction
site, and it's like, oh, what's going on? Like, that was the first interesting thing that happens in this episode.
Yeah, so the next half is like a mixture of both her wandering around setting like her best friend and her father on fire, and like a truck on fire. We find it, and then info dump. So we find out she's a moratorium, which is a contractor who's gone past being a contractor, and they no longer have a cost, but their sanity's gone. They're basically just like monsters that powers are like way out of control.
So she went beyond contract. So she's like a super contractor.
Oh,
super contractor 2 even.
Right. Yeah. But she seems to lose consciousness when her powers go off. Right. She doesn't seem to be like mentally present whenever it happens. Well, actually, no, that's not true.
She's freaking out about the events, though. She's not wanting these people to catch on fire. They just are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, no, that's not. Yeah, what I said was not true, because it happens sometimes that's what happens. But then, like, when the dad grabs her arm, she's just like, no, you need to get away from me. And he just bursts into flames.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what they said about the moratorium, is that they can't control their powers. And in some situations, they'll actually turn into almost like dolls while their powers are firing off.
So the cops come to get her, but that contractor shows up first, kills all the cops, and then they get the girl. Lee goes back to that scientist. His name is Tahara. And Tahara finally explains what's going on. Basically, he had noticed his child was turning into a contractor and was like, well, that's no life. And so had used the plant that he had taken from Hell's Gate and developed a suppression for her powers this whole time. But
he embedded one of the seeds in her arm.
Right. Yeah, developed or researched. I think this is... what testing did you do? Did you find a contractor rat and put the seed in it to see what would happen first? Like,
I don't think they have an ethics committee that makes them operate on rats first.
No, that's not my point. Like, what led him to go, hey, if I put the seed from this plant in my daughter's arm, it's going to suppress her power? Like, what?
He said it did, like 2 other people.
No, I know he said he did, but like,
he's asking how he came to that conclusion.
People.
Where did he get the idea?
He just tried it.
Just tried it? Just randomly? I'm going to cut my daughter's arm open and put this random...
first. he said that they had already used it on other people and it had had an effect.
Oh, I missed that part. I don't remember him saying that.
Yeah. So he then put it in his daughter and was like, I don't know if it will do, but it wasn't to revert. So the issue was that it turns you into a moratorium as a negative side effect. So like as a contractor, you get converted into a moratorium.
Oh, so he made it worse.
Yes. Yeah.
And he had realized that, and he was basically stalling for time to try to figure out some solution. But that's why he'd become such a terrible father, is because time was clearly running out on him.
It's like, I don't want her to become a monster. Well, more of a monster. I mean, if you walk over to your little girl and she's like burning a beetle, and you say, "Don't do that. That's bad." And why? Like, oh no, oh no.
I know, so he's gonna have charred squirrels everywhere, and it's like, oh great, here we go.
Yeah. Well, and I love that they came back to that at the end, where Lee says to her, "Don't do it, don't kill that guy," and she just turns and then she looks at him and says, "Why?" And she burns the guy, and I'm like, oh, that's poetic. It's a nice callback.
Yeah. She killed a guy who deserved it. Jeremy was applauding. He's like, yeah!
I was happy. He deserved it. He did deserve it. But at the same time, I thought it was really cool because it meant that, they'd even just had her be a little girl at the time. Like, I don't know how they did it, but somehow they like knocked her backward. Maybe it was somebody else's power that died, but she acted like she was a little kid again. And so to have her then cycle through that same behavior, it was nice.
So this was Carrie's origin story, huh?
I know, I was thinking that too. Yep.
That would be the 80s, sir. You've gone even farther back in time.
Right? Reach.
Carrie remake.
No, Firestarter.
Is that what Firestarter is?
Yeah, with Drew Barrymore.
Oh, okay.
By Stephen King. Okay. The other story about a kid with psychic powers. Anyway, Lee goes to save her, fights the other contractor. The dad shows up and gives up all his research for her, which is just the dead plant, because the power is activated, the plant has died. He's like, yeah, there it is, you can have it. And then she's like going crazy. She's like, that's not my dad. And he grabs her, and then he's like, I'm sorry, and he goes to stab her. Lee stops him, and then the other contractor kills Tahara. Lee kills that contractor, and then the girl burns the guy who had hired the contractor, and then she reverts from a moratorium back into a contractor, so Lee's team takes possession of her for the syndicate, and that's it.
And happily ever after.
She's going to heaven.
I already said I really like the story. I love noir, and doing noir with a fantasy sci-fi twist definitely works for me. It's very good.
Totally agree.
Next, this is one of my favorite stories. We see a shady business deal going down, and a guy with ice powers, and I love that he complains so much about, like, because one of the goons is going to light a cigarette. He's like, we're not doing business if you light that cigarette. And he talks all about what smoking will do to you and how I have to take the secondhand smoke. Then the goons turn on him because they don't like the business deal. He uses his ice powers and kills them all. And then his contract is he has to smoke. That was really good. It was a great payoff to that long monologue about the cigarette.
What I really loved about the way they portrayed his ice powers, however, not only does he have to either be touching or have access to some sort of freezable liquid, but so, like, you think Todoroki and My Hero Academia, like, and he covers someone in an ice block, right? And like, they're like, oh, I'm stuck. No, in this one, he freezes someone's hands and they just break off. And then it's like this almost horror-esque situation. And and also the way they drew like someone's arm or hand being frozen was very realistic. It was just like, ooh, yeah, that's awesome.
And I also loved his partner's powers to create a rainstorm, which is like, okay, I'm going to be in a fight, hit me with a rainstorm, so I have unlimited access to water and ice
range.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep.
Really cool. loved this whole thing. So they're looking for a contractor called Havoc, and because of this shady business dealing, they're able to, and they reveal they're MI6. They are 00 agents.
And I love her contract as well, because he complains, I have to do this. She's like, I get to do this.
Yeah, she's drinking. I like alcohol.
Who knows how much she likes it when she's 4 or 5 deep, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then we see Havoc being given to the Japanese. We kind of already touched on this. The UK is playing nice and giving over to the Pandora Research Station, which is the research that happens in Japan right at Hell's Gate. They're turning over this Havoc. Havoc is one of the most feared contractors of all time. I forget what her power was, but it was like
Void.
Oh, like
she can create a vacuum.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. And her contract was drinking children's blood.
Yeah.
But she is now powerless, and so they really want to study her. They're called
forfeiters.
Forfeiters. Thank you. Yeah. So she is a forfeiter, and they want to study her. What happened? When they turn her over, he is introduced to Chief Masaki. He as a diplomat from the UK. And again, this character is great. My first thought was this would be a great main character. The way he'll say, like, yeah, I kill people, and everyone's like, what? And he's like, I'm joking.
But he's not.
Yeah, it was so great. He plays it up very posh. He's very cool. And I have a feeling he's coming back. They've definitely left it open of like, no, stay in Japan. We may want you for another story. But yeah, so then we find out, the CIA is coming for her, and then he's like, actually, we're in the trunk of the car instead of in the helicopters. It was
case.
But then Lee's team attacks, and they steal Havoc away, and Lee actually manages to beat him and get Havoc away. And this part didn't make sense. Chief Masaki goes back, and her boss is like, actually, these guys are MI6. I'm like, well, if everyone knew, why even bother with the diplomat? You really didn't even have to tell her who he is. You could just say, hey, you're working with this guy. Don't ask questions. If you have that kind of don't ask, you don't need to know authority. But
I think it had to do with the fact that he was a contractor, that they were all contractors, and that freaked her out. And then also wondering, like, well, what are the stars aligned with this character? Have we seen them before? Oh, we know that's MI6 star. Okay. I think she might have been like on the way to deduce it. Amazing detective work this department does. So
I was freaked out by her boss being like, hey, those are MI6. We didn't want you to know.
Yeah, but now we do.
But you knew. So like Japan knew MI6 was here and helping, and he was still lying anyway. It's just a little extra.
Never tell your generals what you're going to do.
They come up with a plan. They're going to go get it. And then we see Lee's team, who's freaking out because he has disappeared with Havoc. And that's where we cut to Havoc being like, hey, where's my sister? I know you know. And then breaking her fingers one by one when she doesn't tell him. And I'm like, yeah, that's a choice.
I thought they did a really good job of Havoc's personality, and the way she interacts with everyone is just this broken person. And it doesn't seem to be she's broken from like the testing she's gone through or changing hands or not having freedom. No, she is tormented by her demons. And I think because she lost her powers, her personality kind of came back, and this whole idea that I was drinking children's blood probably really messed her up. And she's probably going, every time someone's poking and prodding her for her the testing they were doing on her, she's probably like, yeah, I deserve this. And so it was real sad to watch this broken girl just kind of go through what she was with Lee, but she also just didn't seem to mind. She kind of, she screamed when he broke a finger, but besides that, she's just like, she didn't even struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even right after this, he unties her. He makes them both food and just unties her binds, not like worried about it or anything. They bond while eating. She talks about the children she's been living with and how they taught her to cook and how she started getting good at meals. And offers, hey, if we take me back to the gate, my power should come back. And so with my memories of what happened to us on our mission with your sister, so I can tell you what happened to your sister. But if I start turning back into that person I was before, promise me you'll kill me. So they start going back to the gate. She starts, the powers start coming back. They even mention her stars reappearing in the sky. And it's basically her PTSD starts mixing with the memories of who she was. And she starts freaking out. And Lee makes the decision, we're not going to do this. I'll find my sister another way. This isn't worth it.
Mm-hmm.
But November's team manages to find them and kills her.
I'm okay with the whole events happening. What I'm not okay with is the 3 spikes that got her all at the same time, because he makes a spike later and he chucks it like he would a spear. How did he throw 3 at a time? He doesn't have Elsa's powers. He touches something and it freezes. Like,
he must have gotten them ready and then had 2 in his left hand. Throw. That's probably the only way.
Rapid, real fast.
Yeah.
Maybe he had a bow.
An ice bow.
What one he didn't have to reload.
Yep. Never has to reload like Hawkeye.
Oh God.
All right. Lee and November face off against each other. November wins this time, but Lee is rescued. By
it's by the old man.
Oh, it's wrong.
Old man. Yeah, he throws in a fire missile or grenade or something.
Yeah, I saw someone throw it. I didn't notice who it was. So okay.
I don't think Yen ever like physically does anything. I think she's always just like, hey, here's your information that will save you.
Touching water.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then there's a great scene where Misaki confronts November and she says something to him. He's like, what? She's like, just joking. It was good. Good little callback. Good little jab at him. And then Lee gets in trouble with his team for going off script. The next episode, next two are, we switch to a new main character for these two. This is Guy the Private Eye. Jason, thoughts on Guy?
What a great character. He was you know what, he reminds me of Mob Psycho's like teacher.
I can see a little bit of that. Yeah, Reagan.
Yeah, Reagan. He's got this persona of, I'm this great private detective, when in reality he's just a police detective that quit to start his own private eye
because he was terrible,
because he's not very good, and he also makes weird connections, but he tends to be right on some of them, and he's obviously not paying the bills, just like Regan.
Yep.
And his assistant is quite funny as well, like and watching him interact with the world in this, like, you know, noir, I'm in the 40s kind of vibe, except every time someone looks at him, they just don't take him seriously. It's pretty great.
My favorite thing is that he does that noir self-narration, but it's actually in-world happening, and the other character's like, are you doing the Humphrey Bogart thing? Stop it. Like, he's saying it out loud, like, oh, it's always raining here. And then they're like, we can hear you. Stop it. Shut up. So good. Made me laugh very hard.
Well,
I love that
like,
narration style anyway.
Yeah, in the beginning when he was first introduced, the lighting was different, and I think it was because he literally had the lights off, and it made it look like it was closer to noir lights. No, he's funny. He's a great character. This show needs more comedy relief, and he was there for that, and so was his assistant.
I think it's really interesting that Jason liked this character. Probably one of your favorites, right, Jason?
Yeah.
Because you know who it reminds me of? Because this guy, he's just a dandy guy in debt. This guy is so like Space Dandy.
Jason's offended.
No, I'm not offended. I'm confused.
My trap card.
I'm confused because I don't agree with you. That's
a slacker who talks about how girls need to have big boobs with an assistant that's always on his case, and he's actually not very good at anything he does, but he is the comedic overtone while carrying the series. Not at all. Is it because he doesn't have a pompadour?
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's 100% true. But he's not dying constantly, and the world restarts for some reason. He's not constantly chasing tail. He notices it and he prefers it, but he's not constantly chasing it.
Literally every comment to his assistant is your boobs are flat and you need to get big boobs.
Yeah, that's not chasing. That's
stares at the widow's
jabbing.
breast every scene.
Right. One girl. He's not doing it to like every girl he sees.
I'm sure he does do it to every girl he sees. You think this is
They
a
don't show
one-time?
You have no evidence for that.
He even went and got a picture of the widow and put her on his desk.
Look,
But being infatuated with one person is not the same as dandy. I'm sorry.
Oh, this guy, come on, we're seeing like one client. If another client with big boobs showed up, you know he would be just as infatuated.
Dandy is definitely a sillier character, but
much sillier.
They are very close in the role they're filling and the way they work into the story. This is the dandiest character in this entire anime. And when I saw it, I was like, oh man, I can't believe they put like a space dandy like guy in here. And then when we're doing pre-show, you're like, he's my favorite character. And I'm like, yes.
I mean, you can claim this win for yourself in your mind if you want, but I don't agree with you. He's nothing like dandy.
For the comment section, people. Rally.
Which they will agree with me, by the way.
Oh, we'll see. This is gonna be good.
I'm gonna have to do a poll. I don't know how to do that.
I do. I can set one up.
Okay.
Yeah, please do. You're so wrong.
Okay. All right. So in this story, it's not really important to the main series. It's a great story about a private detective who's hired to find this woman's cat. He also hates cats. And
weirdly. Like he's afraid of them. He's even like, oh, I peed a little.
yeah, he pees himself a little bit. Man, he is so dandy sometimes. His assistant who reminds him like, you barely pay me. He's like, I don't want you watching anime while you're on the job. He's like, what are you gonna do? Fire me? It's called a perk. This is the only reason I come to this dumb job. She's also great, by the way. They had a great back and forth. He keeps bumping into Lee while Lee's going about his business, but Lee's also investigating a side-by-side case that has to do with the pharmaceutical company that's associated with the widow and her dead husband. Basically, Lee's chasing a killer, and this guy is chasing this cat. He also he confuses Mao with the cat and ends up abducting Mao at one point. The results end up being the widow had gone to see the ex-wife who had ruined the husband's house and found her dead. And because the husband had always loved the ex-wife's scent, she was so ecstatic about the fact that she was rotting, she left her there. But now had gotten feeling guilty about it and wanted someone to find her, so hired a detective to find a cat so he would go into the house and find the dead body and report it. Also, the killer is the dead husband. Is that what you guys are getting? Because of the way he had to smell his old socks? I
can see why you would draw that parallel, but no, because
it didn't. It didn't seem that way.
No, this was
just a guy at the company who also makes sense.
I don't even think he was at the company. I think that there were two contractors that were working together. One of them had like ability to do gravitational stuff, and he jumped into that guy's body and never got access to his own, and so then he just continued operating as that guy and kept his sock to remember his body.
Was associated with the company?
I don't think so. I think that they were just contractors for hire.
He's trying to get the scents, the vials of
to get them
from the perfumes. Okay.
Mercs.
Yeah, ended up being side by side. Again, he keeps bumping into Lee and thinking Lee's involved with his case. At one point, the bad guy gets into the guy's body, and he fights Lee, but then they switches back.
So there's one weird thing about this that I'm not 100%. I don't think it's consistent. So when we're first introduced to this body jumper, he leaps into the body of this guy up on a roof and positions him in such a way that when he leaps back out into his own body, the guy will lose balance, fall off, and die. And the guy immediately wakes up as soon as he jumps out. This guy, our guy, does not. He stays conked out.
Yeah, you go.
And I have no idea why.
That might be the damage he took from Lee strangling him.
Well, it's true, but he wasn't knocked out before he jumped. Right?
Yeah.
So he shouldn't be knocked out after he jumped. But I don't know. It was just did not come across as consistent to me. It came across as convenient.
Another one that was weird is when he gets the first guy, he jumps, he takes the vial out of the pocket and puts it in his, lifeless body's coat, and then goes up onto the railing. The second guy, the dude jumps, to his death, and then he walks up and then takes the vial out of the pocket. It's like, well, hold on, why didn't you just take the vial?
Yep.
That was very contrived.
And there's one more with this guy, and this is probably my biggest pet peeve with this particular character. When he jumps out of his old partner's body that he's always in, his old partner doesn't wake up.
Right.
Like, why wouldn't his old partner wake up? It's not his body. He jumped out of it just like he jumps out of everyone else.
Yeah, whenever he jumps out of anyone else, they wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a time thing.
Maybe because the partner is dead, there's no one to come back. Maybe there's a connection to your original body. It has to still be alive.
Well,
maybe it's a dead body.
Oh, no.
Partner's not dead. He died.
His partner's not dead. He's in his partner's body. Yeah, I don't know. Look, the detective was great.
Yeah. I did like that it was that the stories paralleled that smell thing where they're like, oh, man, I thought that was his price, but he didn't use his power, so he wouldn't have to pay his contract dues, but he's still sniffing his old sock. I wonder if that's from his original body. And it was like, okay, you're playing with smells like this whole time. Yeah. I don't know if that's important for some reason, or if you're just like, hey, we need a theme. What is the theme going to be? Smell. Smell is going to be the theme. It's pretty cool.
In the next group, we have the Chief Misaki storyline where she's meeting a informant who gets murdered right in front of her by a mysterious contractor. On that crime scene, her father shows up. He's technically her boss, and he forces her out to lunch or dinner and offers her a promotion, which would basically sideline her from the investigations. She did, a desk job so that she could eventually rise up to his rank. She says she'll think about it. And then while they're leaving, because she took them to a crime boss's restaurant, she runs into her old high school friend, who's the daughter of the crime boss, and is roped into attending this birthday party upstairs for her. Is forced to get dressed, to even meet the crime boss. And what's weird about that is her team is undercover on this case, and she's like,
about it.
She's like, wait, what? Why are you here? Like, wait. How are they undercover without you having signed off? Like, yeah, go undercover on this family business. But yeah, her Sato is there. Also, Lee is there working as a waiter with Sato. And then it turns out her best friend is crazy and has decided to take over the family business. And they're
with the help of an elf.
Yeah, her bodyguard is he's a contractor, but also is an elf. He has straight up large pointy elf ears, and they never say
not addressed
anything about it all. Yep. Because they're like, oh, he's a contractor. I'm like, well, he's an elf. Maybe that's involved.
Why do you have Elrond with you?
Right?
Also, they're turning bees into drugs.
Yes.
They have
With
these
stone
flowers from Hell's Gate that when bees pollinate them, the bees turn into like a narcotic that you can have them sting you and get high. And she does, like multiple times. The evil daughter is like grabbing the bees and being like, oh yeah, that's the stuff.
Yep.
While she decides to kill Misaki because she's on this whole kick about like, I gotta get free of my past, and they used to argue about cigarettes as young ladies. I know it's more than that.
Yeah.
I didn't like her whole reasoning, especially the elf guy.
It was
later,
garbage reasoning. Yeah.
when he's like, she just like, there are people who could command her because you stood up to her once. She'd like, suddenly you could command her. She had to get free of you.
I have a feeling this is more manipulation from him. Like he used her to take out the crime boss.
Mm-hmm.
And she's high. Probably barely knows what's going on at that point.
Have you described this contractor's power yet?
Blood
Go ahead.
man.
It is cool.
Yeah. So I found it interesting that his compulsion or his contract is he has to cut himself. However, if he gets his blood on you and snaps his fingers, his blood explodes, which bugged me because in the next scene after he's exploded his blood, he holds his hand up and it's covered in his blood. Why didn't his hand explode? Maybe it's because it's still connected to the rest of him, and maybe only blood that's not attached to him explodes. I don't know.
Well, they said when it happened to Kirihara to what's her name? The police officer, to the guy right
Misaki.
in front of her at their beginning. Yeah, Misaki. They said it looks like it's a volatile form of matter transportation. So I think his blood is teleporting from away from him into him. And I think that's why he had to cut himself again so shortly afterwards.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
While she's being chased, she runs into Lee, who got lost while being a waiter. And then they go sit in a bathroom to hide. And I was like, oh, it's like a ship thing? This kind of works. This age? That was just I felt like there was chemistry there. That's all.
He has no chemistry with anyone. He is manipulating everyone.
That's true. I don't know. I felt like he was being a little bit more real here.
No.
Maybe that was just me wishing for a character to show up.
He literally sent them off to distract the bad guy.
Fair enough. Lee goes and destroys the stone flowers for the syndicate, and then fights the elf, but ends up losing and blown off a building. And then at the end, Misaki gets caught, but then the elf guy shows up and kills the daughter, the boss's daughter.
Who saw that coming?
Yeah. So especially the whole like he's going to do this for me, and he comes up behind her, and it's like, oh, you're dead.
Yeah, if you speak so ambiguously, like he's gonna relieve me of all of my my pains and frustrations. Yeah, through death.
Yeah.
Right. That's forever.
Yes.
Lady, you need to watch a movie once in a while. Right. You would have seen this coming.
Just too busy getting high.
But then guess what, guys?
Final girl.
Lee's not dead.
Yeah.
He's still alive, and he comes back and he beats that.
What?
You're kidding.
It's crazy.
And saves them.
To get the stone thing.
And then Misaki turns down her dad, and she's like, if I could blow a case that bad, I need to keep working the streets. Best cops ever.
Called nepotism.
Yep. And then our last story for these 12 episodes is Lee is sent into the Pandora Research Station, which is part of the wall that blocks off Hell's Gate. And he meets a young college lady named Boku on the bus. He's going because the what's called the meteor fragment was being stolen, and there was an explosion, and no one knows where it went. They think the CIA is trying to steal it, so they want Lee to go in and get it for the syndicate.
Which this is our first clue of what Hell's Gate might be, is that it's a meteor impact. But we don't know.
Yeah. And there's other... Go ahead.
There's no way.
There's no way it's a meteor impact.
There's no way it's a meteor impact. All the buildings are still there. This meteor fragment isn't a meteor at all.
There's a crater.
There's a crater in the middle of the city.
No, there's a crater after.
No. Okay. When they're all sitting in that room, they got those weird head things on. They're watching the screen, and the light flashes in the car. Behind the car is a crater.
It's a big crater.
I don't remember crater. I don't think it's.
I remember. It doesn't exist. Moving on.
I think they're being literal. I think it's the gate to hell.
Okay.
That would be interesting.
But you're not going to find out, so it doesn't matter.
He will in the minisode.
That's right. You guys will tell me.
How much does not like Space
Dandy? You guys know there's a sequel series to this as well?
What?
And there's a movie?
Yeah, there's OVA that's like in between them.
I gotta check.
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit of content about it.
I have a feeling you're not gonna know after the second half of the episodes. I don't think this is gonna give up its secrets that fast.
Season 2, OSTs, Gaiden, Cherry Blossoms. Yeah, there's a lot here.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm up for
it. Depends on how good it gets. If it stays interesting, I'd be up for it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
The confusing thing though is that they have the meteor fragment and they're sending someone in to get it, but someone's already stolen it, but then it ends up being with a person who just came in with Lee, but then it's outside already, and then it's back inside. Like this thing, and I'm guessing it's the Hell Gate, like quantum properties. It both is there and isn't there at all times, kind of thing. But it's very confusing.
It is.
Who has it and when they have it in this timeline. Which I'm fine with, because like I said, it's very clearly saying everything is wibbly wobbly when you're in the Hell's Gate.
It's also weird that it's been, like, I don't think it is the lens, but that it's been put into the lens of that telescope. Because everybody's like, oh yeah, this is the meteor fragment. It's literally just a lens for the telescope. Like that's super weird too. Like, did they melt it into the lens? Did they shape it into the lens? Did they like insert it into the lens?
Did it just break off the meteor as a lens shape?
Yeah, exactly. It's super weird. And I kind of like that, but I want an explanation, and I don't think they're going to give one.
So Lee, while they're going in through security clearance, because basically you go inside this building and you work there for a month, and you're not allowed out, and you have to go through strict security clearance. And the girl that he met starts freaking out in line, talking to people who aren't there, and security grabs her, tases her, and drags her away. And then Lee starts his job as the janitor in there, and meets up with a scientist lady whose name I didn't get. But she's like his informant, but she's like, basically, I don't have any information other than there was a thing and now we've lost it. And I'm just here to do research and I've done my part. I'm like, wait, you just said you didn't have a part, but she's part of the syndicate anyway.
It sounds like she wants to be a researcher, right? But she can't seem to find a research gig.
Right. So the syndicate put her in here to help, and she took it as, okay, I can go join that job.
Which likely means she's not a very good researcher.
she was trying to take advantage of, the syndicate's thing here, but now she's always scared that, the syndicate's going to find out I'm a terrible researcher and send someone to kill me.
And the people that are here are going to find out that I'm in the syndicate and like interrogate me, imprison me, kill me. Yeah.
I'm going to go through the story kind of wibbly. It's all jumbly anyway. And then I have some issues with it, but I also really like something they did. So I want to talk about it more, but I'm going to go through it real fast. Then we'll come back and talk about it. So, the college girl, she's in the building and she has a freak out and is like, I'm getting out of here. And then the next day, well, we see her get murdered by a mysterious person.
If you can recognize the silhouette, you know
Yeah,
instantly who it is.
it's so like, I was like, okay, thanks for telling us. Especially since they're like, maybe it was Lee, electric powers. It's like, no.
All you told us is that someone else has electric powers.
Speaking of, there's a scientist there that is friendly with Lee. They go and look at the stars, and like the stars aren't real, but they're able to see the stars with the telescope he has. If you imagine
hard enough,
you believe, forget that hell is open next to us, and you can see the stars.
I'm seeing.
Yeah, and then everyone is hooked up into like watching a screen of a probe they're sending into Hell's Gate because, again, quantum physics, like it has to be observed, and if multiple people observe it, then everyone it'll make it real. Lee sees his dead sister, but
no, it'll give them different perspectives. It wasn't about quantifying it and making it real. It was about maybe we'll catch something that somebody's. It's like doing it 40 times at once instead of doing it once.
Okay. Lee sees his dead sister. Everyone else sees like an electromagnetic spectrum, which means the meteor shard is there, which it isn't because we know it's inside. But also then they send another scientist team, because the last one is the one that blew up and it went missing. They send another scientist team to go get it, but all of them die except for, hey, the one mysterious guy. So he comes back and he's like, actually, I'm going to quit. I'm going to go work for NASA again. And then he ends up, the security guard confronts him. Is like, I know you have it. And he kills the security guard. He has the exact same power as Lee. And then him and Lee get in a fight over it, but they can't hurt each other. They end up running outside into Hell's Gate. While being close to each other, the meteor fragment lights up. He sees a little cartoon rocket ship with his sister, and it turns him into a kid, and he runs inside it, and he blasts off into space.
Well saying, Lee, you did believe in me. Thank you.
That was his dream, and contractors aren't supposed to have dreams. But also, they do mention the gate will give you back what you lost, but you had to pay a huge price for it. So he gave up. It didn't matter. Then the head scientist is like, actually, I knew everything all along. Here's your exit. And Lee leaves. One thing that the best thing I liked about it was the Lee and Nick, who's the bad guy, that they're mere opposites of each other. They're very, very similar. I liked what they were doing with that. I don't understand the scientist lady. And even they cut to her at the very end of like, she got back what she lost. And I'm like,
I don't know what she lost either.
It's like she's falling in love with Lee. She's like, I heard contractors are bad, but you're so kind. And she keeps like getting involved, and he's like, stop helping. You're not actually doing anything.
Yep.
And he keeps yelling at her, and she's like, you're so nice to me. And I'm like,
and she's like, you're mad. You're mad again, aren't you? I'm making you mad. I'm like, is this what you think so nice to you is? It's like you have to walk on eggshells.
She's just looking for a terrible relationship.
I think so.
Someone to abuse her.
Beat me, senpai.
And again, at the end, they cut to her of like, she got back what she lost. I'm like, what? And she's crying that like Lee's gone. I don't get what was going on with her at all. And, I like to think I'm clever about stuff like this, but I whiffed on it hard. Again, I like what they were doing with the bad guy. And I like getting to explore the Hell's Gate and how it messes with everything. Reality is not stable when you're in there. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little flip-floppy on how this episode landed for me. What do you guys think?
I liked it. You're right about the researcher. She's just a confusing part of this whole thing. But I did love his antics as the janitor, because he's just purposely being clumsy so he can get into certain situations.
Turning on the vacuum in the middle of a meeting, but also hallucinating.
Yeah, it seemed like the hallucination really got him there.
Okay.
I didn't like how convenient it was that the head researcher was also part of the syndicate. I thought that was a little lazy, like they were running out of time in the episode.
CIA. Isn't he with the CIA? Yeah.
Oh, he was with the. Well, in any case, he gave
No, the head researcher was with the Syndicate. Nick was
I
with
thought
the
he was
CIA.
Yeah.
Nick and the girl with. I thought the head researcher was also
The girl
CIA.
was Syndicate.
I thought she was CIA.
No, she's Syndicate. The college girl was CIA.
Yeah, college girl.
The dead one.
Yeah, college girl and Nick were CIA. Head researcher and head scientist, or girl researcher and head scientist were both Syndicate.
Yes.
But I must have messed it up.
That's
why we have 3 people watch, so we can confirm reality.
Yes.
This is part of the thing that I kind of, without more knowledge about what the Syndicate is, who they are, who they're serving, or what their interests are, or the reasons behind they want the media fragment, or they want the research papers, or whatever. It's hard to care too much about this particular mission, even though it seems pivotal. Like, this meteor shard seems super important. But yeah, besides that, I really like these episodes. You're right, Troy. Like, the just trying to keep track of what's real and what's not. The college girl just like yelling at as if she's just having an argument with no one there. That was really good too.
Yeah.
What? You can't say that to me. You're dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't talk about my mom like that.
Red flag.
Yes. One of the things that was kind of bugging me a little bit is how convenient and easy it was for the two of them to meet, him and the research girl, because they just, she would just give him a paper that says, hey, meet me at 1:00 in the storage room or the locker or whatever. And they just, like, as a janitor, I imagine he's probably on the clock. Like, people are checking on him. I did janitorial for a long time, and you're not always just free to not be noticed. So it's weird. It's weird to me. It bugs me.
I will bet you that 90% of people who see their real life profession portrayed on any movie or TV will be like, that is nothing like, that is not how the profession works.
That's not how that works.
I know it's true for like doctors and lawyers and stuff, but so I imagine mostly it's like, nah, it's. But thank you for that real world dousing.
Yes.
It's kind of like my favorite hacking scene is where the dude's like trying to go and then like the other guy's like, move over. And so they're both on the same keyboard.
Oh my God, yes.
That's not how that works.
Oh, that's one of the CSIs. Oh, yeah.
So good.
Oh, yeah.
But janitorial does work very hard. I agree that it should be noted that there is out going off on impromptu meetings.
Yeah, no, exactly. And somebody's going to notice. Like, that's absolute baloney that he's out, disappearing into the locker with her. That's nuts. One of the other things was the I had it there for a minute. It'll come back. I'm low on sleep. I will remember it.
You're also low on time because we're going to final reviews here.
Are we? Okay.
All right, Jason, you fell for my trap card, but let's see what your final score for this anime is.
It's the lamest trap ever.
And you fell for it.
Sure. That'll help you sleep at night. I really enjoyed the world building. I thought the characters were intriguing. I like the power sets and how, even though they're not quite explained, but they're, there's a cost. And I really like the direction the story itself is heading, even in episodic fashion. So I'd really recommend this. I'd give this a 4.
Hey, Jeremy?
Yeah, I liked it a lot too. I remember what I was going to say, which is this anime almost has a sort of focus on the world more than it does on the characters or the story. And I really like that. I want to see stories where the world is super intriguing and mysterious, and it draws me in. And they do a good job of that here. They present things in a very slow pace, in the sense of they don't give you all the information about the world at once. They just give you little bits. They part and parcel it. And sometimes getting a new piece changes the perspective of how the other pieces fit together, and I like that a lot. So that's one reason I really did like the first cour. But it's also the introduction, right? Like the first cour is introducing all these characters. We only get like 2 episodes with Guy and his assistant. We only get like a couple of episodes with the MI6 people. It's very much a flurry of, we got to introduce the cast, I think, because in cour 2 we'll bring them back, you'll know who they are, and we can really get into the story we want to tell. And that's a difficulty I always have with cour 1 of 2 cour seasons, is when you're gonna give a rating of that first cour, it's so hard because it's the setup. It's like when you pick up a book and the book is it's real slow to get going, but once you get past a certain threshold, it's going to pick up. So I'm also going to give it a 4. I think that's fair because of how much I like the world, but it's hard when they're just introducing characters. So.
I think that's very fair. I'm going with a 3. I think
middle of the road.
Yes. I think
good.
I think the stories are great. And in fact, the stories I like the best are when they basically make a new main character for that story. The MI6 November story and Guy's story are my 2 favorites because the stories are really good and there's a really good character to latch onto. I don't dislike Lee as a character, but as a main character, he's just not palatable to carry the story in where he's at right now. I think they recognize that though, because I feel like they're working on it and improving that, and I think that's why they're throwing in, hey, let's have Guy carry this story, let's have November carry this story. I think that's very much, we don't have it yet. We haven't built him to where he needs to be. And so it is really good though, story wise. It's just it's home chicken nuggets.
It's not from McDonald's.
I also want to say, when the Yu-Gi-Oh characters like lay 2 cards down flat and then say I fell for your trap card, it's like there's no unflip your flip cards. Like I have to fall for your trap card eventually. I didn't actually fall for it. Like it's just a function of the game. Quit bragging. Like, hey, I have 2 flat character cards down too. They're traps. I know you can put non-traps there as well as like a.
You make a really good point because he declares it every episode.
Every time, like, you fell for my trap. No, I knew it was a trap card, but I have to trigger it to proceed in this game. Freaking idiots! All right, that's just.
Now you're going to the Shadow Realm.
Watching Yu-Gi-Oh or something like.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, Yu-Gi-Oh abridged on YouTube, probably some of the funniest parody I've seen in a long time.
You have been trying to sell that since the very first
episode
of Baka.
So
that,
good.
I don't know if you remember, but that was yeah, I watch anime. I watched Yu-Gi-Oh abridged.
That's amazing.
All right. Okay, our next content again is the movie Paprika. We're going to try to get a mini-sode together for follow-up on part 2 of this. If these guys finish, I'll see. Undecided.
Come on.
Don't you want to see more Spike?
I do, but we didn't watch part 2 of that, did we? Nobody wanted to.
Oh.
Maybe we should do that movie.
It's boring.
It's okay.
Oh, that's right. There was a really good movie on that movie.
Oh my God. All right. If you have thoughts on Darker Than Black, no spoilers for the second half or the future of it, please not till we're done with our mini-sode. But if you have thoughts, please reach out to us on our website, theanimebakaclub.com. Hit the contact us button and it comes to us, and we will try to respond. Some of us have been very busy. But the episodes are caught up.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, also on our Twitter at Baka Podcast or wherever you found this podcast, you can leave a comment, you can leave a review, you can leave a thumbs up. I'll call it Twitter to my dying day, or its dying day, which it doesn't
I've
matter.
had to change out so many icons. From the little bird to a little X. Yeah.
I imagine. All right. That is it for us. We hope everyone has enjoyed this podcast, but we need to say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
What a dandy guy in Sayonara.
Yes. Yes.